that Robin was one of the first I spoke to, I think, after a PPG meeting. I don't remember exactly which one was. Maybe it was in PPG Dallas, but I don't remember. And from that short conversation, it just showed how, well, God shows up in mysterious ways sometimes, because I happen to at least acquainted with Ylva here and her husband. And well, I've heard Robin share a lot in those meetings in the primary purpose group, so I know that she will carry the message of depth and weight. So please, Robin, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Kim. I remember when I first saw you there at our meeting at Primary Purpose in Dallas, and saw that you had Sweden next to your name. I was pretty excited about that. I believe you had Sweden next to your name. Either that or somebody introduced you and said you were from Sweden and made a big deal about it because you were there at 2 a.m, something like that. But yes, I have some friends that live in Stockholm, and so I was pretty excited to get to talk to you. So anyway, I am Robin Reed. I am an alcoholic, and I'm honored to be here today. So thank you for having me. Thank you for being willing to listen to me talk for a little bit. The focus of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be mainly sponsorship and carrying the message a little bit. I am going to qualify myself so that you guys believe me that I really am a real alcoholic, but I'm not going to focus much on that. Just say enough so that you'll feel like I'm carrying a message of depth and weight. So I drank for 19 years, and when I got to a point of really wanting to stop for good and all, I found that I couldn't. And I made several really massive attempts. I made small attempts, but then I made some really massive attempts and couldn't stay stopped. My first really big, sincere attempt was when I got into a really big car accident and came to in jail. Didn't remember the car accident, didn't know how I got in jail, didn't know why I was in jail, none of that. And when I came to, of course, when I got home, I had totaled my car, and it was considered a total loss. And I still didn't know where it was. I didn't know it was a total loss. Anyway, the whole thing was my thinking was only alcoholics do things like this, and I am not an alcoholic. So I'm never going to drink again. That way, nothing like this will ever happen again. And it shouldn't be too hard to stop because, of course, I'm not an alcoholic. So I stopped drinking cold turkey. It was very difficult, but I did it because I was terrified. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. And that car, that was a total loss. It was a new car, but only had it for like 6 months. And so I owed money on it every month for like the next 6 or 7 years. And even though I didn't have it anymore, and I couldn't afford to buy another car. And when you live in Dallas, Texas, you have to have a car. You can't walk to work or anything like that. You have to have a car, and I couldn't afford to buy another one. Anyway, it scared me because I couldn't not have a car. I couldn't afford to buy another one. Only alcoholics do that kind of thing. I have to stop. So I managed to stay stopped by coming straight home from work every night, sitting on the couch, Can you hear me? And either watching TV or reading a book and drinking non-alcoholic wine every night, it kind of to mimic what I had been doing before, which I did that before with real wine, and I would just drink till I passed out. And I did this every night, and I was just going to do that for the rest of my life. And then one night, my husband, who drank every night, drank just as much as I did, called me from a bar. He said, "Hey, come hang out with me." And I'm like, "Well, you know I can't drink." He says, "Oh, you don't have to drink. Just come hang out with me and my friend." And I said, "Okay, I've been sober 30 days now. Surely it should be safe for me to go hang out at a bar and not drink, right?" So I go up there with every intention of ordering this non-alcoholic wine and hanging out with my husband and his friend. Well, they don't have non-alcoholic wine there. Only non-alcoholic beer, and I don't like that. So what do? Well, I must not be an alcoholic if I can go 30 days without a drink, right? So I can have just one glass of wine, real wine, just one. So I order one. And of course, after the first one, I just order just one more. What's 2 drinks, you know? Next thing you know, I'm really drunk, and I'm thinking to myself, how did this happen? And they have this exact story, you know, in the big book. I'm pounding on the bar going, how did this happen? Well, I might as well get good and drunk now. And tomorrow I'll go back to not drinking. Well, tomorrow came and I couldn't go back to not drinking. I just couldn't go back to it. I ended up just picking up where I left off. So there went that whole plan about never drinking again. My mind just totally said, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. I must not be an alcoholic. And the big book talks about how we do that. Apparently, people who are not chronic alcoholics don't do that sort of thing. That was the first attempt. Okay. Fast forward several years, and I made a second attempt to stop. And this time I knew I couldn't do it on my own, so I tried AA. And I tried going into treatment first also. And it was just like a 5-day detox first, and then AA. And so I get out of treatment, or I get out of detox. I start going to AA. While I'm in AA, I get myself a sponsor, and I'm following directions. And my directions were to call her every day and to go to a meeting every day. So I am going to work every day. I'm going to my outpatient treatment, which is like just 3 hours a night after work, where I go to a class. And then I call my sponsor and I go to an AA meeting, and then I go home at night. And so I did that for about a week and a half. And one night I'm driving home from my AA meeting, and there's a bar on the side of the road. And I go, oh, a drink sounds like a good idea. There is no thought at all of how that might be a bad idea, because I just came home, you know, all this effort to stay sober, coming home from an AA meeting, for goodness sake. No thought of that. I just go straight into the bar and start drinking, you know, black out, come to in the parking lot in the middle of the night. And I am wearing someone else's clothes, got baby oil in my hair, have no idea what this is all about. My husband's at home asleep. And I go home and I'm horrified by what's happened, and I have no idea what's happened. Anyway, so that was that attempt at AA. I did go back to AA. I did go back to the detox. I did try it again. And each time I didn't get very far. Each time it was shorter and shorter, and I would end up drinking again. I couldn't get past step 2. I never got anywhere with that. That was my AA experience. So I gave up on that, and I got to a point where I just went back to drinking for another few years and tried all kinds of different things. The things got weirder and weirder. I started doing hypnosis, past life regressions, crystal therapy. I went to psychics. I mean, all kinds of things trying to get rid of this stuff, because I had tried the God thing, traditional Christianity. That didn't work. Anyway, nothing was working. And I just finally came to a point where I realized I was going to die that way. I was just going to drink until I died. I was going to drink myself to death. And I didn't know that I would, I just knew I was going to drink until I died. And I knew it could be a very long time before I died. And that it would be a long, miserable time. And I really did not look forward to that at all. And I didn't really want to kill myself, but I didn't want to live like that. It was awful. It was a very dark place to be, very, very dark. And I lived in that darkness for like 2 years and not knowing what to do because AA didn't work and nothing was working. I went to a psychiatrist. He was an addiction specialist. He didn't know how to help me. He told me, he said, based on how you drink, there's nothing I can do to help you. I don't know how to help you. I mean, he's one of those good doctors, really a good doctor. He knew he couldn't help me. And he's the one that told me to go to AA. Anyway, so finally I found the program in the book. And, it's through a series of, I think divine coincidences or whatever, I ended up finding a sponsor that led me to this book and this program. And so I ended up working the steps and got, had a spiritual experience, and the obsession to drink was removed. And it was amazing and wonderful. And I've been sober ever since. That was back October 17th of 2003. So my sobriety birthday is like on Sunday, like tomorrow. And so it'll be 18 years. So that's pretty awesome. And one of the things that is so important, and I still do this today, I hear about these people all the time in AA that, after a long period of time, they quit going to meetings, they quit talking to their sponsor, they quit working the steps, they quit doing anything in AA because they're done, they're finished, they're sober, they're good. They haven't thought about drinking in a long time. They don't need AA anymore. I don't know how they do it. I can't do that. I cannot do that. If I stop doing what I need to be doing for any length of time, I start going crazy in the head. And in fact, during the pandemic, there was a time when the place where I carried the message to shut down and wouldn't let the outsiders come and carry the message there anymore. And so I couldn't carry the message there. And I was trying to do it on Zoom, and nobody was showing up from the treatment center. They weren't coming. And so I was trying to teach the people I sponsor that lived elsewhere how to carry the message. And that wasn't really keeping me spiritually fit. And so one day my sponsor told me, she goes, "You're getting very spiritually sick. You have got to get out and start carrying the message face to face with real people who are sick and need you." And she said, "I don't care that we're in a pandemic. If you truly believe that that God will keep you safe when you're on the firing line, then you need to get out there and do this." And I was like, I'm willing to. I just don't know any place that will let me. And she said, "I know of a place and they will let you." And it's in the women's unit at a treatment facility. And so I started going up there, and it was a meeting that they were holding there. And because it was the women's like house where they were living, it wasn't considered a business. So I didn't have to, so they didn't have to live by the rules of a business. So I was allowed to go in there. I didn't have to wear a mask, which I could have if I wanted to, but they didn't. Anyway, so I started going there, and I got so much better immediately after I started carrying the message there. This is my segue into talking about how important this is. I actually started getting spiritually unhinged a little bit because of a relatively short period of time of not carrying the message face to face to real people who needed my help or needed the help of a person who was recovered. And that's because I am a real deal alcoholic. And I can't, my mind is going to use every opportunity it can. It's going to take advantage of a thing like a pandemic. It doesn't care that, there's a pandemic going around the world and killing everybody. It doesn't care. It's saying, "Oh, great. This is an opportunity to take advantage of the fact that people are scared and they're staying home. I'm going to just take over this person's mind." No, I have to do it anyway. And so I'm not telling anybody what to do. Please don't hear me say that. I'm just saying what I ended up doing, and it helped me enormously. But the big book tells us that in order to recover, we need to have a psychic change. And that psychic change is brought about by a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. And it tells us that on, let's see, XXIX if you have a 4th edition, or 2 pages prior if you have a 3rd edition. I don't know what that would be in Roman numerals, so bear with me on that one. If you have your big book with you. So that's in the doctor's opinion, and it says to us at the top of the page, the first paragraph up there, kind of towards the bottom of that first paragraph, it says, this, and it's referring to the obsession. "This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery." And they're referring to that cycle that we go through, where the obsession pops up and we drink again. And then once we start drinking, we can't stop, and we go through a spree. And then we emerge remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. And then the obsession comes on and we drink again, and it's just saying it's repeated over and over. But if we have an entire psychic change, next paragraph, it says, "On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire For alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules, and they're referring to the steps of this program. And so if that's what I need to have, and the steps are what I need to do to have this psychic change, then that's what I need to do. So the last step of which is step 12. And step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. It might be reversed. I can't remember which phrase comes first. But either way, we got to do both of those things. So I'm going to try to carry this message to other alcoholics, and I'm going to practice these principles in all of my affairs. But there's a guarantee that if I do all the 11 steps prior, I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. And that's going to be the result of doing these steps. So it doesn't tell me I'm going to get sober. It doesn't tell me anything else. I'm just going to have a spiritual awakening, and it's going to result in a psychic change sufficient to remove the obsession for alcohol, right? But that's what I got to do. It's like this is my payment. It's like in step 3, we're signing up for a job. We're signing a job contract. Step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And then we say this prayer, and we're turning our will and our life over, which is our thoughts and our actions, over to the care of this power, whatever we believe it is. So we're going to do whatever this power wants, right? Because we have these problems that we can't solve. And in return, this power is going to solve every problem we have, not just our drinking problem, but every problem, right? And in return, we're going to do whatever this power wants. Step 12, fast forward to step 12. We get paid with this spiritual awakening, which is going to solve all of our problems. And this is what we're going to do in return, because we said we would. We're going to try to carry this message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So what part of step 12 do we not understand? You know, it says that this is what we're going to do in return for getting sober. So just like any other job, if I want to get paid, I got to do my job. And it's like if I get a job and I'm not very good at it at first because I'm new, I'm going to have someone that's going to train me. So my sponsor in AA is going to train me to do my job, right? And I'm not going to be very good at first, but I'm going to follow all the directions. I'm going to do my very, very best. And then I'm going to be trained, right? And I'm going to know what I'm doing, and I'm going to go out and do it to the best of my ability and all of that. Well, or I'm not. I'm going to be trained, and then I'm going to just choose not to do it. Well, what's going to happen to a person in a job that just chooses not to do it? Well, they get fired, don't they? And they don't get paid anymore. And that's what happens to me as an alcoholic if I choose not to do the stuff that I'm asked to do in step 12. So that's what was starting to happen to me when I kind of stopped carrying the message. You know, a little while ago, I just wasn't really seeking out people to carry the message to. I stayed at home and did it over the phone because I was scared. Well, I forgot about that promise in the book that says, if God will keep me unharmed if I'm on the firing line with these motives. So he stopped paying me. He didn't remove all my money, but he sort of stopped paying me a little bit. and I started to notice. So that's basically, in a nutshell, why I believe it's important to do, what it tells us here. But there's all kinds of things in the book that are going to tell us why we should do it, besides just step 12 itself. Let's see. I have a few things written down to remind me, because I get nervous in these talks and I just forget where things are. So let's go to page 14 in Bill's story here. I guess I probably sound like I'm lecturing. I don't mean to do that. I'm not supposed to be doing that. So my apologies if I sound like I'm lecturing. I just get really passionate about this. I screwed up really bad, when I was doing this thing over the phone, trying to, and I don't want anyone else to do that, but to each their own. And if it's working for anyone out there that's doing it differently from me, then that's fine. I'm just telling you from my own experience what happened to me. Okay, let's see. On page 14, towards the bottom of the page here, the last paragraph, we're in Bill's story, and he's talking about his experience having gone through the steps with his new sponsor, Ebby. And it says here, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Sound familiar? Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he cannot survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. So, surviving the trials and low spots ahead. I've sponsored young ladies before who have said to me, that who haven't wanted to sponsor, for example, and they'll say to me, but I don't have the desire to drink. Why do I need to do that? Or if they don't want to carry the message, same thing. And I can't seem to get it through to them that just because they don't want to drink now doesn't mean they don't need to do this, because what they're talking about here is we need to do this now because it builds up it's like a savings account or something. It's like building up money in the bank for when your house burns down, and then you can pay for whatever you need because you got money saved up or whatever. You're building equity, spiritual equity or whatever. If I don't have that equity built up and something happens, what if my spouse dies and I don't have that spiritual equity? Then I'm not going to have it there as a foundation to lean on, and I'm going to get drunk. That's what's going to happen to me. Maybe it won't happen to anybody else, but the book is suggesting that it'll happen to a chronic alcoholic. So it's a good idea. Just saying. All right. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. All right. So his wife and he abandoned themselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. And let's see. It was fortunate for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. This sometimes drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It is a design for living that works in rough going. So it's just a good way to live, basically, to keep me sober when life gets rough. And it does get rough from time to time. So it's just, if I'm doing it every week, which my sponsor way back at the beginning had me get a commitment to where I could carry the message reliably once a week, at least once a week. And so I've done that reliably, religiously every week. And, the place I carry the message has changed over the years, but I've always had at least one place to carry the message once a week since I got sober. Sometimes I've done it at more than one place, just depends on how much spare time. And there's a place in the book, I can't remember where, but it says we spend much of our spare time doing this kind of thing. And so always it's been like the more spare time I have, the more time I spend carrying the message. Okay. So we call them wind-up joints, places where alcoholics wind up. Jails, mental institutions, halfway houses, treatment centers, shelters, anything like that. And we ask if we can bring a big book study there. And instead of a meeting, like I don't say, can I bring an AA meeting into your facility? I say, can I bring a big book study into your facility? And that way, it's open to anybody there who wants to study the big book, whether it's a drug addict or a sex addict or a gambling addict or an alcoholic. Whoever wants to study is welcome. That way I don't have to stick to the traditions. Whoever wants to study is welcome. And it's been magnificent. And that's how our group does it. And we've got like over 50 different places that our group is committed to carrying the message each week. And it's just an ongoing thing over the years. And like, if I leave a location, I'll find someone to replace me. And so it's like, we don't lose the commitment. Someone always takes it over. And we take these things seriously. If I can't be there some week, like say I'm sick, I'm going to call somebody else to fill in for me. I'm not going to just not show up. If I'm going to be out of town, I find someone to fill in for me. And it's my responsibility as the person who's not going to be there to find someone. It's not like I just call the facility and say, I'm not going to be there. You better find somebody. Or call the person whose responsibility it is for finding people to carry the message there. I don't just call that person and say, I'm not going to be there. You'll need to find a replacement. No, it's my job to find the replacement because I'm not going to be there. And that's what I teach all the people I sponsor. So that's how that works. And we do it in different formats. So it depends on the nature of the facility we're going to. Like if it's a detox facility where people won't even be there for a whole week, and I go there once a week, so it'll be new people every single time. I might do a foundation meeting every time. If it's a facility where they're there for a whole month, I might do the steps and go through the steps each week. Like not all of them, like the first 3, the first week, and, do some of the steps each week for the whole month and then start over again. If they're there for a long period of time, I might do a big book study and we just go through chapter by chapter, and I'll bring someone with me and we'll split up the chapters and we'll read and comment on them as we go through. and people can ask questions or whatever. But we don't generally have like a discussion type meeting or have it be open, because otherwise they'll take over and start a discussion meeting. We really just keep it explaining the book and teaching from the book and that kind of thing. So that's kind of how we carry the message. And the big book here does tell us throughout, over and over and over, we take the message to them. We carry the message to them. And if there's new people, I feel, and I was taught that it's my job to go up and introduce myself and make them feel welcome and ask them, do they have a sponsor? Do they need a sponsor? Can I help them find one? Can I be one? That kind of thing. Not put them on the spot, but just make sure that they have all the help they need. Because they're very shy often. They don't feel, they're too scared to ask for help and that kind of stuff. Okay, as far as sponsorship goes, a lot of people don't feel qualified to be sponsors, especially when they're brand new. And again, my sponsor told me, as soon as I get through the steps, I'm ready. and my sponsor got me through the steps really fast. So I'm ready really soon. And as soon as I know that the people I'm sponsoring are doing what they need to be doing, then I feel comfortable setting them loose. If someone asks them to sponsor them, I'll say, don't say no. Even if they haven't quite gotten through everything, I say, don't say no, because you'll be through the steps in the next few days. So go ahead and say yes, and we'll just get it going, but I don't have them go out and offer or anything until they're really ready. But chapter 7, working with others. When somebody is ready to start sponsoring, I have them read this, and then when they have the opportunity to start working with somebody, like our group will say at the beginning of a meeting, I think it's at the beginning, yeah, they'll say, if whoever's available to sponsor, whoever's been through the steps and had a spiritual awakening as a result and is available to sponsor or whatever, either stand up if it's a live face-to-face meeting, or raise your hand if it's a Zoom meeting. So then I'll start having the people I sponsor that are ready stand up, and at the end of meetings, I'll have them go chase down the people who got a chip and I'll have them introduce themselves and talk to those people and that kind of stuff. But I have them read this chapter, and then if they find someone to sponsor, I say, call me. And then I start giving them instructions on what to do. And I kind of walk them through, this is how you walk them through the steps. And I do that for the first person or two that they start sponsoring, and then they can do it themselves. And it's real simple. It really is. And really probably the most difficult thing about it for them ends up being when the person they're sponsoring has life situations come up that they don't really know how to handle. And they may ask me, what do I tell them? And a lot of it is, well, suggest that they pray. And, when they get an answer, maybe run it by you. And so it doesn't, and if it's not too crazy, maybe that really is their answer. But if it's super crazy, it may not be their answer. That kind of stuff. But working with others, this chapter gives really, really good advice. But I didn't realize this at first. I used to think at first that the whole chapter was just about sponsorship. after a while, I began to realize that about the first half of it or so, the first bit of it is about how to 12-step someone. And then if you successfully 12-step them and they decide they want you to sponsor them, then the book goes into instructions on how to sponsor them. But Cliff Bishop, who used to be my sponsor, bless his heart, before he passed away, used to say, I've never gone on an unsuccessful 12-step call because he got to stay sober. So even if that other person ended up not taking him up on the offer and they went out and stayed drunk or whatever, he got to stay sober. And the same thing's true for me. I always like it when they decide they want to do the program, but a lot of times they don't want to. They're not ready. But still, I'm planting a seed every time I do this 12-step call. If I do it the way the book tells me to, I'm planting a seed, and perhaps I have made a friend. So over the years, I've learned I've gotten better at this. At first, I used to be really gung-ho and really enthusiastic, really way too much, and probably scared some people away. And I'm sure I did. And I'm sure I angered some people, and I'm sure I pushed them away, and I'm sure they never wanted to come back to me. I hope I didn't keep them from coming back to AA, but who knows? I know I probably kept them from coming back to our group, that's for sure. Anyway, but over the years, I've gotten better about this. But I know if I follow the instructions in the book the way I'm supposed to, I won't be doing that. I won't be scaring people off, because it says things like, don't talk down to people. Don't be an evangelist. Like, don't be too enthusiastic. Don't try to talk them into getting sober. If they're not ready, then back away and, just say, okay, call me if you ever decide you want to do this kind of thing. Don't see them unless they really want to see you. That sort of thing. Try and find out as much as you can about them before you see them, if that's possible. A lot of times that's not possible these days because you're seeing them for the first time in a treatment center. There's no buffer in between you. Back in the days when they wrote this book, a lot of times you talk to the family first, and so they could give you a lot of information. But that a lot of times that's not possible these days. But if you can talk to somebody first, they can find out if this person is even really wanting to get sober, and even really wanting to get sober for good and all. Because if this person doesn't want to, it's better probably not to see them. Let's see. And then it says on what to do on the first visit. It says what to do on the second visit. And it tells us that we're there to be helpful to the family as well. It also talks about how we don't want to debate with them about religion, and that this isn't about religion. We really don't even want to talk about religion at all. That person may be very religious, and their religious convictions may be different than ours. So we don't want to get into religion at all. Because because that could just turn them off of AA altogether. Because they're like, hey, I'm Buddhist and you're Catholic, and I don't want to talk to you about that, and whatever. So if we don't talk about religion, but they want to talk about religion, you can, the book tells us how to handle that. It's so amazing how it handles every single scenario you could you can imagine finding yourself in. I think it says you can tell them something like, hey, you probably know way more about it than I do. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But perhaps there's some things you're not doing that your religion calls for, or you wouldn't be drinking. So I might be able to help you with that. Something like that. The book says it way better than I do. But I'm short on time. So let's see. Here it is. It's on page 93. Let him see, it's at the bottom of the page. Let him see that you are not there to instruct him in religion. Admit that he probably knows more about it than you do, but call to his attention the fact that however deep his faith and knowledge, perhaps your story, he could not have applied it or he would not drink. Perhaps your story will help him see where he has failed to practice the very precepts he knows so well. Okay. And then it tells us, let's see, outline the program of action, explaining how you made a self-appraisal, how you straightened out your past, and why you're now endeavoring to be helpful. It's important for him to realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. So there it is again, telling us, yeah, we got to do this. Actually, he may be helping you more than you're helping him. Make it plain he's under no obligation. That you hope only that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. Let's see. Maybe you've disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. He'll be more likely to follow your suggestions. He may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. Do not contradict such views. Just tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. So basically, if he doesn't want to do the program, we don't contradict him. We don't say, good luck, buddy, or you're not going to make it. We just say something like, well, that might work for you, but if you're like me, I had a hard time. And I didn't make any progress. So, let's see, give him a chance to think it over. I always, when I do the first visit and I talk to him and I explain everything, I tell him what I did to get sober, and then I tell him what I do now in a general way, kind of so they can understand, what their life is going to be like working the program. And then I let them think it over. People will always when I tell them, I want you to think it over and then give me a call tomorrow, they always say, oh, I already know I want to do this. And I always say, I want you to think it over and call me tomorrow. And I always do that. And invariably, about half the time, I either never hear from them again, or they call me the next day and they say, I thought it over, and that's just more than I want to commit to. I really don't think I can do all that you guys are asking me to do. And it's like, okay. But yesterday, I don't say any of this to them, but I'm thinking in my mind, oh, yesterday you were telling me you were all enthusiastic. I'm so glad we didn't do that third step prayer, and that happens about half the time. So it's really important, I think. I've found it really helpful to follow that instruction. It even says sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. And I remember I used to do that. I used to go ahead and do that third step prayer if they were anxious. And I used to lose so many people, like right around the fourth and fifth step. And I have a dear friend in the program named Ed Posey. Some of you may know him. And he once told me that he would tell people what he does now to stay sober, not just what he did to get sober, but what he does now to stay sober. And then he gives them that day to think it over. He said that day is so important, and telling them what he does now is so important because that's what gets them to, that's what always stops them, is that what we do now and that day to think it over. And he was so right, because now I don't lose that many people at once we start working together, but I lose them at the very beginning. I lose them right then. So I don't waste as much of my own time, and I don't do as much damage to them, because if they take that third step prayer when they're not really ready, I think it harms them. That's my opinion. It doesn't say that in the book, I don't think, but so you can take that for whatever you want to. But it just seems like it's not only a waste of my time and of their time, but it may be kind of harmful. I don't like to get them started unless they're really serious. So anyway, I don't lose them later. I lose them sooner, and that's a good thing. All right. As far as when I'm actually sponsoring people, I do want them to follow my direction, but they don't have to follow my suggestions. So, and I tell them that if it's a direction, you need to follow it. If it's a suggestion, you don't have to. And I'll tell you when it's a suggestion and when it's a direction. And at the beginning, most of my stuff is a direction. It's just step work. You need to fill out your paperwork. You need to, call me and we need to do that fifth step, that kind of stuff. But after that, almost everything is a suggestion. And over time, I've learned that lesson as well. I used to be a real kind of militant and very a stickler, kind of more controlling about things. But I've learned over time not to be that way, and let people make their own mistakes and learn from them and stuff like that. So anyway, I think that my time is up, and I hope I've been of help. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Robin. Now I should close.